it's when you're like, I don't know, this might sound stupid, but like when your brain like moves around and kind of like hits on your skull and stuff, and then that like affects something. I don't really know.
Concussion is when your brain gets like rattled around and it like bleeds and swells and stuff. It's kind of scary, and then you're just, I don't really know what it does exactly, but I know it's like a swelling in your brain. I guess that puts pressure on like certain things and causes certain symptoms maybe, but I guess it can be like very varied.
A concussion is basically almost, if you want to call it, a bruise to the brain from impact. You want to picture the brain almost like an egg, that the shell's moving, and even though the shell may stop, the yolk on the inside continues to move, and that can affect the neurotransmitters in the brain and cause a cascade effect, and that's where your symptoms come from. Any type of blow to the head, so you'll see it obviously with football, any type of your contact sports, soccer, lacrosse, basketball. You can see with volleyball, a girl trips and then hits her head on the floor. So anytime there's any type of impact to the head, you can get a concussion.
Most concussions happen when a player hits her head against the playing surface or an opposing player. In soccer, many concussions occur during challenges for the ball in the air when players accidentally hit each other rather than heading the ball.
So I had the ball, and I was curling and running down the field to the goal. And then this the girl on the other team, she was like built like a brick wall. She was big, and she was just standing there. So I was like, oh, I'll just go around. So I was running straight towards her, and then I like shifted to the right to go around, but she shifted with me, and like sort of leaned her shoulder down, and my head like bounced off her shoulder, and I bounced on the ground, and then all I remember was just like laying there, and like I couldn't breathe.
And I had the ball, and I went to try to run past this girl, and as I ran past, she ran towards me, and she tried to hit my stick, but I moved it, and instead she just whacked me on the head. And then so immediately I fell to the ground, and I like couldn't really see anything for a second.
So we're in the middle of a soccer game, and I was running with the ball, and a girl came at me from behind, and she like hit my side or something, and I fell on the ground, but I slammed the back of my head on the ground, and then I rolled over a few times, and that's how it happened.
I got hit in the head with a ball. The girl was shooting or passing or something, and my head was in the way, so I got a little knocked out from that.
Sometimes it's hard to recognize concussions as an athlete because there's no visible sign that they have occurred. No external wound will signal an internal concussion. So in order to recognize a concussion, one must first be able to recognize the signs and symptoms of this injury.
Typically the most common is a headache, but there's a whole array of symptoms. Some people get very emotional, some people become irritable, we've had people cry, some people get really angry, they can become depressed, they can become nauseous, sleepy, you can have blurred vision. You can't rely on just a headache for a concussion, but that's typically the one that you're going to see. Mm-hmm. Some people do lose consciousness. It's very scary when people actually lose consciousness, but I don't want to say it's common, but it's not uncommon for someone to lose consciousness, but that's the old school thought, is you have to be completely knocked out, and that is not the case.
I was just very confused, and I wasn't exactly sure where I was, and I did have a headache, and I was really dizzy, especially like when I would move at all. And then we went home, and like on the drive home it started to get like a little bit worse, and then when I got out of the car and walked up the stairs to my house, I like got really nauseous, and I was so dizzy, and I just felt awful.
I didn't know what was happening. I just knew my head really hurt. Like I couldn't remember anything. And so he did all the tests and everything. He's like, "Yeah, you have concussion." I'm like, "I'm really cold." Like all I can remember, I was so cold. I was shivering. Like all my teammates were like putting blankets on me, but I was still really cold. And then like I couldn't think straight. Like everything was blurry and my head hurt. So I was a little nauseous, but I wasn't throwing up like sometimes people get. I just had the headaches, the unbalance, some nausea, and like blurry vision.
It was really hard to focus. I like couldn't even sit up straight. It's the dizziness and the nausea. Those are like my main symptoms.
Other symptoms of concussion include sensitivity to light and noise, drowsiness, nervousness. Also, many people report feeling slowed down or feeling like they were in a fog, in addition to difficulty concentrating and disorientation. If you are hit and think you have a concussion, don't try to play through it. You should report to a coach or a trainer on site just as a precaution.
Tell somebody. So if they have an athletic trainer on site, or if there's no athletic trainer on site, make sure their parents know, and then they need to be monitored.
So if they're like real dizzy, they can't focus on the ball, and they're kind of running around, like a chicken with their head cut off, busting on the side, it's probably not a good idea to be on the field.
Rest your brain, because honestly that's the only thing that's going to help you get over it, and the more you resist that, the longer your recovery time is going to be.
You should definitely go to your trainer or doctor just to get checked out, just in case, because even if it's like a minor concussion, you can still have brain bruising or bleeding, and that's really dangerous. So I'm always careful now, and if I get hit in the head, I need to get checked out.
Some people are afraid to report concussions for fear of seeming weak or of letting their teammates down. However, the risks of not reporting a concussion are much more serious than missing out on part of a game.
The problem with people who play with concussion is if you get hit again, you can develop second impact syndrome. That's what people die from concussions. And it can be just a little graze of a blow, and then typically within a minute of them getting that second blow, basically their brainstem swells to the point where their body can't function, all systems stop. And that's why second impact syndrome is so deadly, is because the brain swells so much that there's nowhere for it to go. So basically suffocates the brainstem.
In addition to the threat of second impact syndrome, the susceptibility of someone towards getting a concussion tends to increase after the first concussion. With each following concussion, the injured athlete's symptoms take longer to go away.
Typically, the more concussions you have, the longer it takes to recover from them. So if someone's had the first concussion, that's when they typically will heal the fastest. Now, let's say they've had 3, it can be a while, meaning a few weeks, a month.
Even after learning about the facts and consequences of concussions, some athletes are still hesitant to report them. However, the easiest way to manage concussions is to identify them early, which leads to faster recovery time and minimizes the chance of second impact syndrome. Reporting a concussion takes bravery and will not make a player seem weak. Besides, missing the remainder of a game by sitting out is much more favorable than missing the rest of the season or your career due to head injuries.
We spend a lot of time talking to kids about being honest about your symptoms. If you're not honest and go out there before you're symptom free, if you get another easy blow to the head, you could be out the rest of the season. So
I honestly don't think you should play through it, because you just make it worse. Like a minor concussion, becoming a major concussion. So it's always good to get checked and try not to play through the pain.
You should definitely report it, because I kind of to an extent tried to play through my concussion, not very long, but I definitely take it seriously, because I thought I was fine, and the ref tried to convince me I was fine, and I tried to convince myself I was fine. But I think if I had played any longer, exerted myself in any kind of way further than what had already happened, if I, God forbid, I got hit again, I would have been in so much trouble.
the younger the person, the longer it takes to recover, because the brain's still developing, and so it's a little bit longer of a recovery following concussion for someone that's in middle school or high school versus someone that's in their 20s or 30s. So that's something to take into consideration. Females take longer to recover, and that has to do with hormones and the way females' brains are just different than males.
Just remember, if you hit your head and think you might be concussed, sit it out for a bit, because while sports may be very important to you now, you will need your brain for the rest of your life.